The Oklahoma Sooners have a win total of 9.5. The Caesar Sportsbook, you can find it with the price around -115 to the over, -115 to the under. You take a look at the non-con. Remember, in the Big 12, 9 conference games, round-robin conference schedule. UTEP at home, Kent State at home. Hey, Kent State, again, that's a challenging non-con for Kent State right there. Then, very, very interesting game, especially after the way that last year's finished. It is the other return visit for the Oklahoma-Nebraska renewal of that old conference rivalry, that game in Lincoln. So UTEP at home, Kent State at home, at Nebraska is the non-con. You take a look at some of the home games. Baylor's going to be a home game. Bedlam against Oklahoma State is going to be a home game. Texas, of course, is going to be neutral. Kansas State is a home game. So at 9.5, what is our read on the Oklahoma Sooners?
Well, before we get into it, you mentioned it. I just want to point out what Kent State's non-conference is.
Okay. Because they play 8 conference games, right?
Yeah. It is at Washington to start. The week after, it's at Oklahoma. Then their first home game of the season is in week 3 against, I believe that's the Long Island University Sharks. And then after that nice home game, they're going down south to play Georgia at Sanford Stadium. So their 3 big non-con games are at Washington, at Oklahoma, at Georgia. So Kent State could have an impact on your national title race in 2022.
Gotta get paid.
Yeah.
Like, if you're Kent State, you're not showing anything those first 3 games, right?
Oh, you mean like schematically?
Yeah, probably not going to break out a lot of trick plays there against those 3 schools.
I thought that would be the approach of, not that you would break out the trick plays, but that's the approach of, we're willing to play anybody, anywhere. You're trying to instill a certain mindset. Maybe there's a recruiting angle for it as well, but that I don't know. What is the advantage of going and getting pasted, of getting the like physical brutality that you're going to get going up against Georgia? Like, I know you're
said the word paycheck. The pasted paycheck. That's,
geez. Well,
I will say what you said though, like just ducking everything and then getting ready for conference schedule. That's kind of the UAB model, right?
So,
like there's long been a thought in the betting community that UAB under Bill Clark just did not give a damn about their like non-conference paycheck games, and then their power rating entering the season would be very depleted. Like Georgia beat them 56-7 last year, and it could have been like much, much worse if Georgia didn't pull up. And then all of a sudden, like they lost to Liberty 36-12, and then they're like, "Oh, by the way, we're actually still really good. Watch this in conference."
It almost seems to me like hazing or de-recruitment or something. Like we're gonna send you through going up. We're gonna send our offense that we're somewhat excited about, and we're gonna send you against Washington's defensive line. We're gonna send you against Georgia's defensive line, and we're gonna send you against Brent Venables and whatever he's got cooked up for you there. And then by the time you get to Mac, life will be cruising. Anyway, this is not the Kent State podcast. This is about the Oklahoma Sooners, and I'm sure that those Sooners fans that love us so much are enjoying this sidetrack. So where are we at? 9.5. The price is split about even. You take a look at it, and from that like power ratings perspective, there is not a single game where you're like, oh wow, Oklahoma, that's going to be a game where they're going to find themselves as a notable underdog. They are going to be favorites or close to favorites in almost every single game on the schedule. So can Brent Venables convert enough of these wins to go 10-2, 11-1, or even 12-0?
Yeah, I'm leaning over here. I'm not like super comfortable with it, but I think that it's the more likely outcome because, as you just said, Chip, I look at this schedule, and where are they dogs? Like maybe that Texas game if Texas gets off to a really hot start, but I look at Oklahoma's schedule and I don't see like UTEP. I'm not worried about. Kent State could cause problems, but I think they're going to win that game. Nebraska is, I'm sorry, I know the game's in Lincoln, but until Nebraska actually shows me it's capable of doing anything, I'm not going to give them the benefit of the doubt. Kansas State, I think, is kind of a sleeper, but I don't think that they're really like, I think they could upset Oklahoma, but I think Oklahoma's winning that game at home far more often than not. At TCU could be tricky. So I think Oklahoma's probably 5-0 heading into that game against Texas. And I don't think Texas is nearly as complete of a team as Oklahoma is. I think they'll have the offense to give the Sooners some problems, but I didn't see anything on that team last year to make me think they're going to stop Oklahoma at any point either. So I think this team, like, even if they lose that game to Texas, I still think they're getting to 10 wins.
So I'm going to go under 9.5. But it's not something that I'm rushing to bet, right? Like there's some of these in this league, probably more in the next show, that I feel like are solid bets. To me, Oklahoma is the best team in the Big 12. I think when they list Texas as the conference favorite, that's a little bit nuts, right? Like that some sites have that.
Yeah, no, it's season. I was looking at it this morning for a thing I'm doing on year 2 coaches. Texas, after going 5-7 last season, is the betting favorite at Caesars at plus 200. Oklahoma listed right behind them at plus 250.
Insane. But okay, so I really like the hire of Jeff Levy with the transfer of quarterback Dylan Gabriel. Those guys meshed very well when they were together here by me in Orlando. Like Jeff Levy's offenses almost always score points, and I think it's fair to note that the Big 12 probably knows how to face that Baylor style attack more than most. But Oklahoma still has a lot of really good players on its offense. They get some key transfers in. They also got Bentavious Thompson from UCF, who can go a little bit. I think they're probably fine at receiver. Like Marvin Mims doesn't suck.
No.
Yeah.
They get Bunkley Shelton to transfer in from Arizona State. Offensive line's got a couple pieces to replace, but it should still be a very good offense for Oklahoma. I don't see a huge drop off from what they were doing with Lincoln Riley. Defensively, I have a couple questions, and hopefully those questions are answered by Brent Venables. Now, they did lose their top 2 guys by snap count on the defensive line in Winfrey and Thomas. But they got 2 really nice transfers in Johnson from Tulane, and especially the Hawaii kid. The kid from Hawaii, transferred from Hawaii, is very good. I know a Pac-12 personnel guy who wanted him badly, and Oklahoma won that battle. I think linebacker is potentially an issue. Benito is a good player they lost. And secondary should be, I think, probably fine. My issue is that they just have too many games in which they're sort of like a very small double-digit favorite. And that's not a bad thing. It's just a hard thing for me to project over 9.5. Like, there's a difference between being an 18-point favorite or an 11-point favorite. And I have them as like small double digits, at West Virginia, at Oklahoma State, at Texas Tech, at Iowa State. Like I have all 4, and hosting Baylor. I have all 4 of those under 2 touchdowns. So the expected result there isn't 4-0. It's like 3-1 to end the year. And then to start, I could easily see them losing 2 out of their first 6 games. So it's not something that I'm rushing to bet. I think they've done a nice job in the transfer portal. I think Venables will probably do fine there, at least until they join the SEC, and then let's revisit the conversation. But 9.5 is a hard number to bet over, man. Like that's a very small margin for error. I'd rather just take them to win the conference.
And you've discussed that split before here on the show, I believe, in the Pac-12 as well. I'm going over. I think that there is a very favorable home road split in conference play. I also think that they're going to go 3-0. And while I do believe that there's probably one of those 2, I think, is going to be sensible. One of those 2 might not be sensible. Like the sensible loss that you would wrap your head around might be, the neutral side against Texas. It might be against Baylor. I do not see Oklahoma State winning 2 games in a row. I am sorry for not being willing to jump on board there, but we've seen very, very few of those Oklahoma State wins, and even that victory required an amazing defensive stand at the very end. And we'll get to Oklahoma State specifically in just a little bit, but Caleb Williams was knocking on the door of a game-winning touchdown at the end of that game. I don't see the Cowboys being able to do that 2 years in a row to the Sooners. So, at Texas Tech is the one that I've circled as maybe they'll probably go to Texas Tech and they will be sizable favorites, but Texas Tech could come out and make that really, really interesting just based on what we're projecting for their own offensive ceiling. But again, Baylor in Norman, Oklahoma State in Norman, Kansas State in Norman. I think that home cooking is a great thing for Brent Venables and this team in 2022. I've got him going 10-2, so I'll go over on that one.
Bud hates Oklahoma. Sorry, I jumped on the.
and Bud hates them.
Bud hates Oklahoma. He only thinks they're going to win the conference. But other than that, he thinks they suck. That's what the Oklahoma fans need to take away from this.
That's right.